Hey guys, Sean C. Phillips here with my February 20th DVD update. I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, if you enjoy these update videos, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below what you guys saw, the titles I checked out in this update, any future titles you guys would like me to review for future updates. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory Scream Factory line. This is a Wes Craven movie that I had not seen in a really long time, and it always really creeped me out, because like movies on this subject matter have always creeped me out. I always felt like, I don't know, something about it, it feels like it could happen. There's been some movies on this subject matter, like, Weekend at Bernie's 2, which were kind of silly. This, on the other hand, is a very creepy movie on that subject matter, and it always creeps me out. I always have, like, freaky dreams and things like that, and this movie also has, like, the dreams that Bill Pullman's character is, like, examples of, like, freaky dreams I feel like I've had. And this is, Wes Craven's film, The Serpent and the Rainbow, and this is one of, like I said, a really underrated Wes Craven movie, and extremely creepy, and has a brand new artwork on this one, which is great artwork. Shout Factory's, Scream Factory line is always doing these great, covers for their releases, and this, for their collector's edition releases, and this one, the movie's basically about Bill Pullman's character, who gets hired by the Food and the Drug Administration, because they find out about this powder in Haiti where they discover that people in Haiti are kind of like presumed dead. They're getting buried, but then they're finding like pictures of these people, and like evidence that they're still alive again, and these photographs and things like that. And they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on and how this is happening. And they hear something about it. Could be some type of a powder or something like that. So they send him over there to see if this is actually true, what is going on, and what this powder is that's, presumably bringing these people back to life, if they're actually dying, or if this powder is kind of making it look like they've died. Basically what it is. So he goes over to Haiti to try and investigate and try and track down one of the people who was in the photos and find him. Of course, though, when he's going around asking all these questions, it's a very bad thing for him to be going around asking these questions, because then this one guy who's like the head of everything out there, he works with the cops and stuff like that, is really freaky, and he's kind of lurking around everywhere, and everybody kind of works for this guy. And then Bill Pullman's character starts to kind of having these terrible dreams with him in it, with a guy in it, and then he's like the things when he's in coffins, and really freaky stuff going on, like extremely creepy movie. I really love this movie. It has on here a commentary track with Bill Pullman. It's a new one, The Making of the Serpent and the Rainbow, with new interviews, but a really cool, underrated Wes Craven movie, which I highly, highly recommend. The next one in Scream Factory as well is the Vincent Price Collection Volume 3. This is the third collection. Now, this one has on here 5 different movies, and all of them are in HD, except Edgar, An Evening with Edgar Allan Poe, because that one, I think, was shot on, like, video, because I'll talk about a little bit what that one's about, but that's the only reason why that was not as an HD. It's a new transfer on it, though, really good transfer on all these ones. But the movies it has on this set are Masters of the World, Tower of London, Diary of a Madman, An Evening with Edgar Allan Poe, and Cry of the Banshee. My favorite one on here was Masters of the World, which is like Vincent Price's character, who's like flying around with these people in there, and this kind of blimp type thing that he has. And he's going around, and there's like these crazy stock footage of him like flying over certain things and wars and stuff like that. And he's kind of having a war against wars with this balloon thing with these other people he's kind of keeping in there, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get away from him. The Evening with Edgar Allan Poe was a cool thing, because when you think of, I always think of Vincent Price. You always think of him in a lot of Edgar Allan Poe stories, and The Raven, and a lot of those kind of films. And this is basically him sitting down and then doing a reading for, I think it's like 5 different things in these different settings, reading Edgar Allan Poe stories. And a really pretty cool thing, because he's like the perfect person for doing that and doing a reading of those. Cry of the Banshee is another really cool one about witches. It has in here too, a booklet with artwork in here, the covers and pictures and things like that from the movies. But a really great collection. If you guys are a fan of Vincent Price's films, this is definitely a must-pick-up one, too. And they actually do go out of print as well, because, like, the first volume of this is out of print now, I believe, and very pricey. So if you guys are interested in this, definitely pick these up, because, like I said, they do go out of print. And the next one, there's a lot of shout titles in this one. The next one is a double pack from Scream Factory, and this has Millennium and Rotor. And Rotor is one of those movies that I have heard about for years. Millennium, though, is a movie about this airline disaster that happens, and they're kind of investigating what happened, because something happens to the plane, and they don't exactly understand, because they heard something really strange on the black box on the plane, the kind of thing they picked up, because it was a terrible accident, and it's Chris Christopherson is kind of investigating this thing. Then it gets to this real trippy thing about they're like discovering something about this people going back in time and doing something with people and replacing them. It's a really creepy, like weird thing, science fiction stuff going on, and some really strange looking alien type creatures and stuff like that. It's a really actually pretty cool one. But Rotor but makes this set. Rotor was amazing. And it had this like really cool song in it that I was able to find online. I was like listening to it. It was like a really cool like 80s song, extremely 80s song. The movie's basically though like a kind of a knockoff of RoboCop mixed with Terminator, and it's essentially like this place where they're kind of making robots, and then the robots that they made like were these really kind of cheesy things that are kind of going around and they're talking, and the robot's wearing this like police hat, and it was ridiculous. But they're creating like these like, super advanced robots, and there's these scenes of the robot kind of like moving around when you see like the exoskeleton of it like doing these weird dances, and it's really 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 extremely peculiar the way it's doing these. It's almost like it's doing like the boogie or something. I don't know. Basically, though, something ends up happening, and the robot ends up being brought to life in the human form, and he's going around and killing people, and they have to try and stop him, and he basically obsesses about this one woman who saw the boyfriend doing this crime, kills the boyfriend. She's on the run, so he's kind of tracking her around. But great cheesy synth music in this, and just ridiculous because like the guy really he really didn't have much of a robot vibe at all. He just sort of like this like a guy with this mustache, and then the one guy had like a painted on goatee. I swear it was painted on. It was really weird, but really great set. Another one double pack as well has The Curse and The Curse to the Bite, and these are cool movies. I have not seen these movies in a really long time. And also this set for Millennium has an alternate ending and really great transfer, and really really good transfer on Rotor, because that's one of those movies you really would wonder how that looks, and it really because it was a really low budget movie but looks really good. But this one is like, and these both are great as well. And it's Curse and The Curse to the Bite. Essentially though, The Curse is about, it has, who was the star of this one? It was Will Wheaton, and it's basically his family's on this farm, and the family's having all kinds of financial problems, and they want to kind of buy this farm out and kick the family out because they don't have the money to pay things off. And there ends up being something that's like kind of messing with the this basically this alien thing, kind of something crashes down, this kind of ball thing that has a really strange look to it, crashes down into the farm. And then the Will Wheaton's character and the father and the family are all kind of investigating, trying to figure out what happens. And immediately when this happens, strange stuff starts to happen, like the vegetables and stuff start growing huge, but they're all like rotten and have like bugs and worms in them. And then people start kind of getting like these rashes, and the people start to kind of freaking out and getting really strange. And it's kind of what is what is doing this to them is having to do with the alien, whatever the thing is that crashes. The sequel movie was basically about a radioactive snake that ends up biting this couple that are out in the woods, and bites the boyfriend's hand, and the hand kind of slowly starts to turn into a snake. It's a really crazy, strange movie about him like getting taken over by this snake hand and killing people and things like that. Curse 1, though, was the better of the movies, but I don't know, I always like these movies. And Lucio Fulci actually produced the first film. Now the next one, and this movie was absolutely amazing, and this was pretty, the Scream Factory as well, and this was made for Chiller, and a really different movie for Chiller, because they're more creature feature kind of things, and it's a totally different direction for them. And hopefully they make more movies of this kind of style, because this is the kind of movie I like, these really different kind of films. It does have a kind of a feel of like The Good Son mixed with like a young like psycho kid, Lauren Bates as a kid. And the movie's called The Boy, which stars David Morse and Rainn Wilson. David Morse, always been a fan of him since The Langoliers, and he's in tons of movies. Green Mile, lots and lots of different movies, but always loved that guy. And the movie's called The Boy. Now, this is not The Boy, the one about the doll. This is a different movie called Boy. The movie's basically, though, about this kid who lives at this really run down motel in the middle of nowhere, where he kind of works there for his father, and he's like 9 years old or so, and he's basically just helping his father out, and no one's really coming to this place. Everybody kind of ends up there, is like there by mistake, or if something has happened to kind of lead them there, but the kid's kind of helping him out with things. But the kid is crazy. He's like obsessed with death, and he's like putting down traps to kind of catch and kill animals, and he's bringing dead animals back to the dad, and the dad's like giving him a nickel for him and stuff. It's really peculiar. This kid is absolutely obsessed, and he's messing around with cars in the junkyard and doing all kinds of odd stuff in his shed. And like I said, it's got that good son vibe with Macaulay Culkin kind of thing, going to the shed and messing around with things. But Rainn Wilson's character ends up stumbling to this hotel. Something happens to his car, ends up staying there, and as soon as he gets there, things start to get really odd with what's going on. And Rainn Wilson's character has this kind of box. You don't know what is in it, and he's like holding it with him all the time. And the kid becomes like obsessed with the box, wondering what it is. And he's also lurking around in people's rooms at night in the hotel, putting his hands over their face, and like really like kind of like Cat's Eye, with the cat putting thing on things like catch, steal its breath. It's a really weird movie, and the ending was like, whoa, what ends up happening in this is like, I don't know. I love this movie. Like I said, it's a not everyone will like it because it's definitely a slow burn movie, but this, to be honest, was really really cool. And has on here behind the scenes footage, and Elijah Wood is actually one of the producers of this one. And the next one is called Narcopolis, and it's like a futuristic kind of film. Has on here though a commentary track, behind the scenes, deleted scenes, and this is an IFC one through Scream Factory. This is basically in the future, all drugs are legal, and it's kind of like starting further into the future, kind of talking about how drugs are in the future and kind of how it happened. Then it flashes back to kind of at the early stages of all this, and about this cop. And it's basically they've legalized all drugs, and like, and they but then there's like these kind of people on the streets who are kind of making their own, and the bootleggers and stuff like that. But this one company is kind of controlling all of the drugs, and the cops and everything are kind of going around trying to get the bootleggers and the people who are kind of selling the other stuff, because they want to kind of control it and have everyone use the corporations type of drugs and this one type of one. But then there's like the cop ends up discovering about this body, and then they're doing like, you know, tests on it and discovering it's got a certain type of drug on it, and he's kind of trying to figure out what this kind of drug is. Starts to realize that it might have something to do with this corporation, and it's something that's killing these people. And of course, when he's looking into this, it kind of messes up everything and causes him to be taken off the case, and messes up everything in his life. And he wants to try and clear his name to get back, and that's when everything really starts to go crazy. Like I said, it's a cool futuristic kind of thing, and a really interesting concept too. Like I said, about everything in the, you know, in the future, all drugs legal. The next one from Universal, and I really like this. This one was a remake. I think it was a Chilean film. I'm not 100% certain. I believe, though, it got a lot of awards, the original. And I really like this movie a lot. This is called Secret in Their Eyes. I saw this one in theaters as well. And it has Nicole Kidman and Julia Roberts. And it's basically about, I don't know how to say the main actor's name, like Chicheal Agenor. I can never say it right. There's certain names I cannot say right. But like I said, it's Secret in Their Eyes. And it's basically about these cops, and beginning of the movie, you see they find this dead body in a dumpster, and it's the daughter of Julia Roberts, and then it's basically they find the person that they believe did it, and something has happened, and because of stuff with the courts and stuff like that, the guy ends up getting free, and he can't get charged with what he did. So years later, the main cop is kind of obsessed with trying to find this guy again, because the guy kind of vanished without a trace after they let him off. Julia Roberts is still depressed, and the main cop is basically trying to track down this guy, and he's looking through faces of people through the profiles and stuff like that, on police records and stuff like that, to try and find this guy. He's been doing it for years and years and years to try and find it. Of course, he finally finds who he believes is the person, comes back to the office after leaving, because basically this whole thing messed up everything, and he goes back and tells Julia Roberts about this, and then it starts to get really strange, and trying to find this guy. And it's got some really interesting stuff that happens in this. A really well-made movie. I really, really like this, and the end of this movie too was really cool. Like I said, a lot of unexpected stuff in this movie. Has on here though, adapting this story for today's world. You know, talking about the other film. Julia Roberts discussing her most challenging role, commentary track. But really, highly recommend this movie. The next one, this one is up for Best Picture, and this is the I filmed The Danish Girl. This was another one that I really, really, really like this one a lot, and I highly recommend you guys check this one out if you guys have not seen this one. So there's Eddie Redmayne and Alicia Vikander. A lot of these names, if I haven't heard them, I can't say them right. But this is The Danish Girl. Saw this one in theaters as well. Another one, it was like set in a similar time period, which I loved. It was Carol as well. This one is called The Danish Girl. Another one, if you guys haven't seen this, like I said, this is up for Best Picture. I would highly recommend checking this one. I believe it's up for is it up for Best Picture? I believe it is. I know it's up for Best Actor for Eddie Redmayne, for sure though. It's pretty much though about a couple who are married, and her character is basically a painter, and the one day she needs to paint a subject, and of this certain type of this dress, so she asks her husband to end up putting on this dress, and it kind of awakens this thing with him. We're kind of realizing that he always has sort of seen himself as a woman, and he believes that he's a woman. And it starts gradually, because then they kind of take it as kind of like a game, where she dresses him up like a woman to go to a party, and they kind of want to see if they can fool people. It's kind of like a game, just to see what happens. They end up doing that, and that really kind of changes everything in their relationship, and things start to really, really change for them. And because he becomes sort of stuck as a woman and can't really go back, because he really believes that that's how he is. And it's a really well done movie, especially in the subject matter. And it also deals with one of the earliest cases of this, surgery, sexual reassignment surgery. But really, really recommend this movie. Really love this one a lot. The next one, and this is another movie that's up for Best Picture. Like I said, I don't know if The Danish Girl was Best Picture. I know it was Best Actor. And this one is really good movie as well, and I think this has a chance of winning, especially just all the performance in this movie was really strong. This movie is called Spotlight. It stars Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, Liv Schreiber, Stanley Tucci, a whole lot of people in this movie. This is basically deals with a pretty dark subject matter about, what was it? Was it the Boston Times? I think it was the Boston. I believe it was Boston Times. And they have this kind of they do stories called the Spotlight story, which is they kind of do a spotlight on a certain type of thing that they kind of research and work on for months on end, and they kind of get talked into talking about the subject of, because they heard about these cover-ups and things like that are going on, like the questions allegedly about the Catholic Church and with priests and dealing with molestations and all these kind of things that are terrible things that have gone on with them and children and all this kind of stuff. So they kind of go in there and start to talk about people who were supposedly molested by these priests, and trying to put together the pieces of if there is actually some truth here, and trying to get access to these certain type of documents that have been covered up. And it's basically just a character piece about talking to these people and them trying to put together their story and seeing if there's truth to this. Of course, this is a true story, so that what had happened, and that they had discovered this. But I really like this one. Like I said, it's not a movie that I don't think that everyone would love. I mean, because it's definitely more of a piece, just like I said, a character piece about what's going on and trying to put together this story. It's also pretty sad too. Like, I'm not gonna get into religious aspects and things like that, but it just makes you really think about certain people. You know what I mean? Like, you go to churches and things like that, like especially the Catholic Church. It really makes you think. And I know this one is one of those stories too that a lot of people had bothered a lot of people, and I can understand with what was going on and finding all this terrible, heinous stuff that's going on at the church, but highly recommend this movie. Like I said, I have a feeling this one has a chance for Best Picture. And it has on here, though, a roundtable feature with actually the real people who were on the case. Like I said, it's a 100% real story. The next one from Universal as well is My All American. This is based on a true story as well. This has Aaron Eckhart, and the one actor in this, Finn Wittrock, was from American Horror Story, who was Lady Gaga's boyfriend on the show, or one of the boyfriends on the most recent season. He might have been on one of the other seasons as well, I'm not sure. But I will say, though, the kids were a little old to be playing high schoolers. I think because a lot of times they were playing high schoolers earlier on, then it was some college stuff, but they just seemed a little old, especially in the beginning. But the movie's basically a true story And I believe it was the guy the writer and director who did Hosers, I believe, and I think Lucas, or he wrote both of these movies. It's a true story about this football player who ended up basically kind of like the underdog, who kind of gets drafted into the team of the college team. And it's kind of about him trying to basically help the team win, but it also deals with too some really sad stuff that kind of happens to him, because like I said, it's all a true story. And it was actually a pretty well done football kind of thing, especially if you're into that. I mean, I like this movie too, because there was a lot of people in this that were from other things I really liked, like the one actress I had not seen in a while, Robin Tooney, who was from The Craft and Supernova and a number of different movies. Aaron Eckhart too. In the beginning, the old man makeup was kind of odd on him in the beginning. There's only a little bit of that, but it was just kind of strange old man makeup a little bit in the beginning. And that kind of took you out of it just a little bit. The old man makeup, for some reason, is always the hardest thing to do and to get right. But it has on here, the story of Freddie Steinmark and a look at the inside of My All-American. But it's a pretty well-made football film. The next one from Disney is a Disney Pixar film, The Good Dinosaur. This is one of the few Pixar ones I did not get to see in theaters, and I heard some mixed things about this. And I like this, but there's a couple things about it that I kind of would have changed a little bit, like the color of the dinosaur and things like that. It kind of didn't read too well in some parts against the backgrounds, because this movie, when it comes to backgrounds, this is The Good Dinosaur, had some of the best background work on the trees and the details I've ever seen for Pixar. It was amazing, and that's some of the stuff that really stole the movie, was the backgrounds. But the dinosaurs in certain times seemed a little lack of detail, just a little bit, to the dinosaur, and it was kind of blending in a little bit to the other things. Some of the other creatures were a little bit better, but the creatures in this, like the dinosaurs and stuff like that, just were a little bit more cartoony than some of their other films. But the movie's though about kind of an alternate reality future where the dinosaurs are still alive, and like the humans are like with the dinosaurs at the same time. This one little kid who ends up basically becoming friends, or kind of, he's like sort of becoming friends. Like the dinosaur, it's like a group of these dinosaurs, and the youngest dinosaur is kind of always trying to prove himself to his family, because they all have like marks on this rock, kind of like about deeds that they did to kind of go out and be adults and stuff like that, like good, like things that they've done that show they're grown up. This kid, the one dinosaur, has never had these kind of marks, and one day something ends up happening. He ends up getting lost with this kid, and it's kind of him trying to get back to his family. That's essentially what it is. Like I said, I like this in a way, but it just, to me, it was my least interesting Pixar movie next to the Cars movies. I don't like the Cars movies very much. I just wasn't as interested in this one as some of the other Pixar movies on here. It has on here, though, making of the movie, hide and seek, a short animated promotional clip, and then one thing too, when they're making like recycled dinosaurs from like trash and stuff like that, it was a pretty cool features. Like the guys at Pixar, they always get together and do these kind of parties and stuff like that for like the movies, and one of them is, like I said, them putting together that for the movie. But it was, like I said, it was an okay Pixar movie, but it was one of the first ones I had seen though that I didn't really love, or didn't like connect to me as much as some of the other movies. It didn't have all that. The next one from Disney as well. This is the new Disney film, and it's a 45-minute movie that kind of launched a kind of like the pilot or the opening for this new series that I believe it's on Disney now, on Nick Jr. or no Disney Jr. And this is Disney's The Lion Guard: The Return of the Roar, and it was okay. I've always watched every single Lion King movie. I watched some of Timon and Pumbaa. This is kind of more in the line of Timon and Pumbaa. Timon and Pumbaa do come back in this, but it's essentially though, Simba and Nala's son, and it's basically their young son, who is kind of messing around and kind of like hasn't really proved himself to his father, and he kind of goes out on this kind of journey to try and like prove himself to the father, and he kind of goes out there, and because it's sort of like him trying to get his roar. It's kind of hard to explain this movie. It didn't because they're trying to, like, it's like him and the honey badger. The one thing, they kept saying it was the honey badger, and I didn't know at first what it was, and then they said it was the honey badger. But it's kind of, like I said, it's more of a pilot for this new show about him going out there and meeting these other kind of friends. And all the characters are back, though. Mufasa and, like, even the laughing hyenas. Of course, some of them are done by different voice actors and stuff like that. But I like this for the most part, but of course it doesn't. It's hard to like capture the magic of the original film. But I think kids would like this. I really do. And it has on here too a little like talking like I don't know what the name of the new character is. But it has like a talking kind of thing in here. But I think it's worth watching. Like I said, I feel like this is definitely more for kids though, more for little kids. Um, the next one, though, from Alchemy, and this is one I just watched tonight. Really like this movie a lot, called Moonwalkers, and has Ron Perlman and Rupert Grint, from Harry Potter films. Ron Perlman was great in this movie, and this is called Moonwalkers, and it's pretty much and about like the kind of stuff when people say the moon landing was fake and Stanley Kubrick had something to do with shooting it, and it kind of deals with that kind of idea about the CIA kind of being nervous that when they're going up to the space, that the moon isn't going to work out and they're not going to get video of it and they're not going to actually be able to land there. So they have Ron Perlman go and actually try and meet with Stanley Kubrick to talk to him about shooting the moon landing, so they have a backup. So if it doesn't really work out, they have this footage that they can air and pretend like it happened. So he ends up going there. Rupert Grint is kind of this guy who's like a band manager, and he's having all kinds of money problems, and he's borrowing money from like the mob. And Rupert Grint's character goes to where Ron Perlman's character is going to be going to see Stanley Kubrick's agent to talk to him, and Rupert Grint's character knows that guy because it's like he's related to him. Goes there and try and ask him for money to try and help him with his band and stuff like that. The guy won't help him. He kind of leaves the office, and Rupert Grint's kind of screwing around trying to see if he can steal any money. And then Ron Perlman's character comes in there and basically tells him about this idea, thinks he's Stanley Kubrick's manager. So then they agree and go, oh yeah, we can get you Stanley Kubrick. They have the one friend dressed like Stanley Kubrick, and then agree to make this stuff. Of course, they're not going to do this. They're just going to steal the money. But then all these issues happen, and Ron Perlman ends up tracking them down and finding them and forcing them to make this movie and figuring out how they're going to make this fake moon landing footage. And it's also an ultra violent movie because Ron Perlman is like ex-military, and he's seeing all kinds of crazy flashbacks and all these like rotten bodies and these scary images and these creepy things these happening, and like he attacks people and kills them. Like it's really a crazy movie, but really dug this movie a lot. It was a really fun movie. The next one, this is so cool that this is out. It's been out for a while, but I have a region-free player, so I could finally watch this on Blu-ray. And it's one of my favorite movies, and it's a Super Mario Brothers movie. And a lot of people talk a lot of crap about this movie, but I've always loved this movie. I saw this movie in theaters as a child, and I feel like maybe that's why I really like it. But I never saw this as a bad movie. I always just see this as a movie I really love. And like I said, this is Super Mario Brothers on Blu-ray, and really looks outstanding. And the main thing on here, which I loved, is a documentary on here, a 60-minute documentary. They talked to, John Leguizamo and a lot of the cast members about this movie, talking about all of the issues that this movie has had, because people, and some I didn't even know some of it, about all the producers coming in and changing the script so many times before they made it, changing the script as they were making the movie every single day. There was new pages, and Dennis Hopper basically having like a conniption fit about, because he would memorize all of his lines, then right before they shoot, they give him new script pages. And it's just if you're a fan of this movie, especially you're a fan of like behind the scenes kind of issues of movies and stuff like that, you've got to check this out for that interview. This feature on here, really great. They did a really good job. The company that put this out I think it's called Second Sight. Second Sight. I'll put a link to it if you guys are interested in picking this up. Like I said, it's a Region B release, but really cool movie. I said I've always loved it. In this edition, I'm going to put the link of where you guys can get this. This is the guy who made this. It's a limited to 300 copies edition of Killer Clowns from Outer Space Blu-ray. And this is the Arrow release inside of it. But what's limited is the slipcover to it, and a really great artwork on this slipcover for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This is a really fun movie. But it also comes in here with a little kind of like credit card type thing that has a felt type thing of the thing that the Killer Clowns turn them into right here. And it has on here, I think it's like 156 out of 300. And I'm going to put the link for if you guys are interested in picking this up. But a really great edition. Like I said, it comes with the Arrow release Blu-ray, but it's mainly the limited edition aspect is this slipcover of this. And it also has on the slipcover this little thing as well for it. But a really great edition. I believe they said that they're going to be doing some other editions of this, some other Arrow releases as well, exclusive slipcovers as well, from what I've been told. The next one is a Grindhouse collection one. This is from a German. This is a German release. I'll put the link to as well for you guys interested in this. And it looks like a DVD, but this is actually a Blu-ray. And this is one of the when I think of like girl gang movies, this is like one of the top ones. This is a Jack Hill film, and Quentin Tarantino actually was one of his favorite movies as well, and he has a commentary on this as well. But this is the Switchblade Sisters, but a really great girl gang movie. It's actually on Blu-ray. Like I said, it looks like it's a DVD. But it's a DVD Blu-ray combo of the film. Looks outstanding on Blu-ray, and like I said, this has only been released in Germany so far on Blu-ray. There's been no other Blu-ray releases of this. And if you guys want to watch like a really crazy girl gang movie, and one of the girls in this one actually went on to do the chipmunk voices, like the Chipettes, and I always thought that was interesting. It's like a weird trivia fact you never would think that she was like one of the people who went on to do the Chipette voices. But if you guys are a fan of this movie, especially girl gang movies, I would definitely recommend that. The next one is from Retro Media, and the director Fred Olen Ray is actually producing these. And this is a real Blu-ray, not like a burn-on-demand one or anything like that. But it's a movie called Scalps, which is a movie I always really liked, and it's basically about these people who go out looking for Native American arrowheads and samples and stuff like that. They're kind of told not to. They go out there with their professor, told to not go out there and do that. Of course, they go out there and disturb things, and they kind of awaken the spirit of this Native American who's kind of going around there and like attacking them and hunting them. And it's a really crazy movie with some really, really cool music. Like, I love the music, and some really cool shots out in the middle of the desert. And this is limited to 2,000 copies. One. It's from a 2K scan of the 35mm negative, and really looks pretty good. I mean, it looks as good as you'd ever expect this movie to look, because it's a movie that was always really scratchy and really dark and things like that, and is definitely the best transfer of this I've ever seen. But has on here Remembering Scalps, a 22-minute featurette, talking with Chris Olen Ray, Fred Olen Ray, and some of the other cast members. And then it also has scenes from Scalps 2, which is like, it's a fan-made film. The next one is another one that I've always really liked. There's a lot of stuff on this one that is like cool ones to see that are on Blu-ray. This is from VCI, and this is Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. And I've always liked this movie. This is a Bob Clark movie, who directed a bunch of I'm blanking about it. Porky's. I always, when you do these with I Black Christmas. I hate when I blank on certain things. But this movie, like I said, is called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. It's about a group of this theater troupe that goes out into the middle of this graveyard and digs up this body and starts messing around and kind of doing this spell and like doing this thing, and they bring back basically the zombies, and it's kind of them, and they're sitting there kind of messing around with this dead body, and they're really ridiculous characters. I'm gonna say too, this is one of those movies when I heard it was coming to Blu-ray, I had like really wondered what is this gonna look like, because the movie was always one of those movies that was released as like kind of a public domain kind of movie, and like so many of those public domain packs, the picture was always really crappy, so dark. Half the time you could hardly see the movie at all, but it actually looks outstanding. Like, I was really impressed with how good the picture and the transfer was on this. It has two cuts to this movie, a European cut and then the US cut and the UK cut. I don't know what the major difference is between them. I never even knew there were two cuts of this movie, but it has on here a bunch of different commentary tracks, Q&A, bunch of different featurettes and things like that. But I would highly recommend this one if you're a fan of this movie, and a really good transfer. Like I said, I was really impressed with it. The next one from E1, and this is a movie that, like, when I first started watching this, I was like, oh, it's just going to be kind of like the same kind of thing. But then I was like, whoa, this like took some really interesting turns, and like I was really love this movie. And it's called Intruders, and who was in this? Martin Starr was in this with a beard. I didn't even know it was him at first. And Rory Culkin is in this movie. And it's about this woman whose brother ends up dying, and Rory Culkin is like the guy who kind of comes around, because this woman is a total agoraphobic. Her brother's been sick and dying. He just died. She never leaves the house no matter what. She just cannot leave. So Rory Culkin's character is a guy who's like with a food service company that brings around food to her and the brother, and he came around the night the brother died, and she's really depressed, and they kind of start talking and stuff like that. He comes inside, and then she offers him, she basically says, oh, I want you to be happy, and because she likes him, so she wants to give him this bag of money, because she has all this money, and but Rory Culkin's character can't take it, so he ends up leaving. But then the next day, all these three guys end up showing up at the house and kind of breaking into the house, kind of planning to steal this money, because Rory Culkin's character slipped up and kind of mentioned about she wanted to give him all this money to his friend, and then the friend told the other friends, and they all kind of broke in. But of course, though, it takes a really interesting turn, though, because like I said, she can't leave the house. She's agoraphobic, so even though these people are in there, she has the opportunity to leave the house but cannot leave. She gets totally kind of freaked out the door. But then things start to take a really interesting turn in the basement of this house, and I don't know, like I was not expecting what's going on at all. Like it's got like a really cool vibe and all these kind of traps and stuff like that. I don't know, I love this movie. I don't know, like I said, I don't want to ruin too much about what happens in all this, but I think you guys are really going to be surprised. Like I said, it starts off, you're thinking, oh, it's just gonna be the same kind of thing I've seen a lot, and then all of a sudden it snaps into like this totally different movie that I was not expecting at all, but a really cool one. The next one from Anchor Bay is Michael Fassbender film that he stars in, Macbeth. And they've done a lot of different stories. This is from Anchor Bay, and they've done a lot of different Macbeth kind of things. But this one, the thing that was really cool about this was the cinematography of this movie and the whole vibe and look. It has an absolutely really amazing look to how this was shot and the sequences and stuff like that. I mean, it's the subject matter. If you're not interested in Macbeth or Shakespeare and things like that, I feel like you might not, it may not be for everybody, but for what it was, for the subject matter, and for the cinematography and how this looked, it was outstanding. But it's pretty much the story of Macbeth. If you guys don't know that, Macbeth is like this basically in the war, and kind of hears from these witches that he's going to one day become the king, and his wife ends up basically wanting him to do anything he can to make that prophecy happen, and wants him to basically kill the king and then take over the throne. And essentially then he becomes like crazy and really mean to everybody and like killing people, and like all kinds of crazy stuff is going on. That's essentially the plot of Macbeth, like the best thing I could say. And I always sometimes have a hard time like following some of the Shakespearean kind of dialect and things like that a little bit. But this one, like I said, it was cool for the cinematography and the look and the whole vibe of it, which really kept the movie interesting, especially the music as well. But it has on here the making of featurette and a Q&A with Michael Fassbender. The next one from Full Moon is Puppet Masters 5, which is basically picks up right after the fourth film let off, which was the guy who was in this hotel with the puppets and kind of looking after this hotel, and he finds the puppet master trunk, and then these evil things kind of come after them, and the puppets end up kind of helping him kill those evil creatures, and that's essentially what it is. The sequel, though, is kind of like after he leaves, the cops are kind of like after him, like looking at him because there's people had died in the building. They're kind of looking at him like he was involved in this. And of course, though, the creatures that they thought that they killed ends up sending this puppet version of himself back to the hotel, and then he has to go and try and help them kill these guys off, and that's essentially what it was. I didn't like this one as much as I liked the fourth one. The fourth one I really thought was fun. This one was okay, but I just felt like it was kind of like, it was a little short because I had to rehash what happened in the last movie, and just didn't have as much steam to me as like the fourth movie. But looks really good on here, though, and has on here a making of part 4 and 5 from the archives, looking at how they do this, because they filmed both the movies back to back. But good transfer on this. The next one from PBS and BBC Earth is Earth's Natural Wonders. It's 3 different specials on here: Extreme Wonders, Wonders of Water, and Living with Wonders. The one I was checking out was Living with Wonders, and it's like kind of talking about these extreme things that people do, like kind of rites of passage. And the one was like the kids have to put that ant thing with those, I think they were like certain type of ants where like if they bite you, they're like like that, basically the feeling of like 30 bees in one bite. The kids had to put on these gloves of these ants. The other one was like climbing over this insane kind of ladder rope bridge thing over this middle of this cavern. The Extreme Wonders 2 talks about Mount Everest and things like that. It's basically like extreme things and extreme things people do in their lives and stuff like that in these areas dealing with these subjects. But it really was pretty well made. I always think of those gloves. Steve-O did that in Wild Boys, put those things on. The next one from E1 as well. And this one, Tony Todd was in this movie. Bill Oberst Jr. has a cameo in this movie. It's called Scream of the Devil, and I actually thought this was okay. It's this woman who ends up, what does she do? She's going like to kind of like Rome because her husband has found out her husband cheated on her. She kind of goes there. It's kind of like freaking out, and the husband ends up you know, she's going there, going to the church and kind of praying and all kinds of things. The husband ends up talking her to come back home. She ends up coming back home. Immediately, she's acting really, really peculiar because she's like, not, you know, she's supposed to be medicated. She has like a bipolar kind of disorder, but then she comes back. She starts seeing all these crazy things, seeing like images of like creatures and weird things in the walls and all kinds of odd stuff going on. It's kind of like, you know, dealing with this, like, is she going crazy because the husband's like saying, oh, why didn't you take if you stop taking your medication? And it's kind of is like, is that has something to do with why this is all going on? Is she skipping the pills and stuff like that? And it's kind of her trying to figure out what is happening to her and why she's seeing these things that it has to do with the medication and not taking them, or if she's like trying to be possessed and stuff like that. I don't know. I kind of like this. I really like Tony Todd's stuff. Tony Todd was great in this. He takes a while to come into the movie. He was only in it a little bit, but his stuff was really good in this. The next one from Breaking Glass Pictures is Riddle Room, and it's basically this girl who ends up getting kidnapped, put inside of this room, and this guy with this like kind of bag on his head, and it's like talking through this, so going like, you do as I say, and it sounds like kind of like it's through like an intercom, almost like a school intercom, like when they would kind of buzz you, like if you were in your room, like the school, and then you were in a class, and they would kind of call over the intercom, and the teacher would be like, shh, they're talking to us in the principal's office, saying that, like going, you have to do this, come to this, and it was like kind of like that. They're like telling her these things, and these other guys wearing these kind of gas mask kind of things, and they're kind of like talking to her and trying to, and kind of giving her all these weird clues, like a key and all these weird things. And there's this other girl like in the room next door under there trying to talk to her. But it's essentially, though, this girl kind of figuring out why she's in this room, what is going on, what do these people want, and trying to put together the pieces. And they're kind of saying, you will not be able to leave until you figure out why you're here and what this is. It's like kind of all this weird stuff going on. I thought this was not bad, though. It was an interesting kind of concept, and you're kind of wondering what exactly is going on and why are they doing it and why are they wearing that bag on the head. The next one from Wild Eye Releasing is called Whore, and that's the title of this one. And it's kind of a revenge film, kind of in the style of like I Spit on Your Grave mixed with Last House on the Left kind of thing. And this was shot a number of years back, so it was shot on like, you know, video and has like a real homemade kind of feel to it. And it's, I think it's a Norwegian film, I believe. I'm not 100% certain. It also has on here the sequel to the film called Inside the Whore, and this is the title. It's called Whore. It's essentially, though, about this girl who ends up going to stay out in this cabin, and these guys in the town, they basically kind of become like obsessed with her and end up going and stalking her to the house. And if you've seen the Spit on Your Grave, you know what happens. She gets attacked and raped, and then just basically a kind of a revenge film of her going and getting her revenge on all these people. Like I said, it's got a real I Spit on Your Grave kind of vibe to it, but it's kind of done, like I said, with a homemade kind of feel to it. And also, like I said, it has a sequel in there as well. The next one, this was a fun movie. This is Mark Polonia. I always like the Polonia films, and I always like too. They always get the same kind of people. It's always kind of cool to see them for all the years. They get certain people like the one Kevin Van Sant, and a lot of these people have been in so many of their movies for years. To me, it's just always cool to see them all again in other movies. And this one is Bigfoot versus Zombies. Really cool artwork on this, and it's about like these scientists that are doing these experiments, and they have this kind of substance that ends up basically bringing people back from the dead. Of course, it ends up spilling out and bringing back all these zombies. And the people who are in like kind of the science facility end up basically, you know, trapped in there with all these zombies coming, and they're pretty much their only hope is hopefully that Bigfoot out in the woods kind of comes out there and destroys these zombies, and that's essentially what it is. It's like, it was fun though, and I thought the production values were really good. It definitely, I feel like for, you know, Polonia Brothers movies, I feel like they've gotten way more production value, and I thought this was really well shot. Probably one of their best shot movies, or Mark Polonia's best shot movies. But I really liked this one a lot, and it was just a fun movie. If you know the movies that the Polonias have done in the past, and now Mark does himself though, because his brother passed away years back, but always have been a fan of their work, and this is just a really, really fun movie. The next one called Epics, and I got to cover this, and I really do have to cover this because there's actually a butt on this cover, but it's called Paprika. Paprika, and it's a Tino-based film, and you know, he does a lot of movies. These are not adult films, but they're more like erotic in nature kind of movies, and it's basically about this girl who ends up having to go and work at the brothel to help her boyfriend out because they believe that's like the only way they can make this money. And it's kind of her going there, working there, and the name she ends up getting is Paprika. you know, like I said, if you've seen Tino Bay's films, you know his films, and they're really well made and really well shot, and really, really good music. You know, Riz or Tortellini, you know, did the music in Cannibal Holocaust and Django Unchained, did the music in this, so really great music. And it's, I mean, like, they're really well shot movies, and I don't know, I've liked all the ones that he's done. It has on here, though, brand new transfer on this and trailers for some of the director's other movies, but a really good transfer on this one. Like I said, this one is from Called Epics. So anyway, though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray update, and thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.